Now let's take a look at the actual Active Directory components. Okay, I'm going to go through each one of these and define them for you. We're going to talk about exactly what a domain is, a tree, a forest, an organizational unit, domain controller, site, schema, and global catalog. Recognize any of those names? I can already see at least 3 that have been mentioned so far in this lesson. So let's go through and define those now. First of all, what is a domain? Now, one thing I need to tell you before we talk about exactly what a domain is I have to tell you that if you've studied Active Directory before now, you may have seen different definitions of what a domain is. And it's not that those definitions are wrong and mine's right, or that mine's wrong and they're right, or anything like that. It's that the definition of what a domain is has changed over the years since Active Directory was originally rolled out with Windows 2000. And as a matter of fact, domains themselves existed before Active Directory. Okay, domains were part of directory services even back in the days of Windows NT. So a domain, as far as what it is now in Windows Server 2008, it's really actually quite simplified. It's the core administrative unit of Active Directory. Okay, so you will see as we go through that there are different levels of where things can be stored. So we may refer to a domain as being a container because it stores things, and where things can be managed. And that's what I mean by the administrative unit, because things within the domain can be managed. Now, you may have seen a definition that talks about a domain being a security boundary. Well, that has changed. It's not really considered to be a security boundary because a lot of the security that we used to keep contained within a domain, well, is no longer contained. Matter of fact, it never really was contained within the domain. It was thought to have been contained. It is the core administrative unit. Now, another definition you might see, and this one actually is still accurate, is that a domain is a unit of replication. That is not false. A domain is a unit of replication. Why? Well, let's go back and take a look. Remember our partitions to the database? Well, all domain controllers, which again, there I go with a term that I haven't defined yet, but I'm using it. All domain controllers within a domain are going to replicate the domain partition, but they will not replicate that information with domain controllers from a different domain. Only things like the schema and configuration would necessarily be replicated between all domain controllers regardless of domain. So you kind of have some level of control over how much is being replicated by doing nothing more than separating into another domain. Now, this again is something that we're going to talk about in much more detail as we get deeper into this course. But I just want you to have the general idea that when we talk about a domain, it's the core administrative unit of Active Directory. And on the screen, you might be thinking to yourself, well, why is there this big blue triangle? Well, this big blue triangle is a representation of a domain. The triangle is the universal symbol for a domain. And when you see different charts, different network diagrams showing domains within Active Directory, they should be represented as triangles. They're not always. I have seen circles and things like that, but they should be triangles. And then the name that I have here, globalmantics.local, is of course the first domain that we will be creating in this course.